Hi, good day, everyone. My name is Hui Ting. Thanks, Ivan, very much for the kind introduction. I'm from Faculty of Science here in NUS. It is my pleasure to be sharing with you today about data visualization, a topic that has been my research and teaching interest for more than 10 years now. So maybe before I begin, I'll also like to give a warm welcome to my NUS colleagues here who are with us, as well as friends from SSG. Please feel free to unmute and say hello to everyone. Okay, I suppose you'll say hi to you over the chat then. Okay, let me move on. Okay, so this is an overview of my sharing today. So there are two segments in my sharing. So the first segment is really encompassing all the basics of visualization, which is the need for data visualization, how do we visualize data, the intent and the different types of data visualization, right? So that will be my first segment. The second segment is actually a sharing on data visualization projects by a few of my participants in the Skills Future Career Transition Program, specifically known as the Data Analytics Program. So I'd like to spend some time in the second segment, which is sharing about their projects, with the aim to encourage some of us here today. If you're thinking about pivoting into data science field, I hope some of these examples here will encourage you to take the plunge. Come and join us at the data science field, right? So perhaps data visualization could be your first step into data science, hence the title of my webinar today, Data Visualization, your first step into data science. Okay, without further ado, let's dive straight in. Now, supposed to say that, you are given two tables here, right? So you have the first table and the second table. The first table showing you some numbers of X1 and Y1, and the second table showing you some numbers of, X2, Y2. So what can you say by just looking at the data tables? Right? So if you just, run your eyes through these numbers, perhaps the first few numbers could make some sense to you, but after a while, it may be very difficult for you to say for sure the relationship between X and Y by just looking at the numbers, right? So however, if we were to plot these numbers into visuals, we will be able to say more, say more, right, about the relationship of X1, Y1. For example, we're able to say things like, X1 and Y1 have a positive and somewhat linear relationship. And if we look at, X2 and Y2, we'll say that, hey, it has a positive relationship, but it's non-linear, or it's not as linear as the first bit, right? So in this very, very simple example, we have actually used data visualization to identify the possible relationship between the different fields, which may not be apparent to us if we just look at the numbers, right? So I've constructed this graph using a freely available tool called Tableau Public, which you can also access freely. You don't need the license for it. Yeah. Let me move on. So here is another example. One set of feedback on a hotel stay. I've extracted, this feedback from bookings.com on a particular hotel here in Singapore. So supposed to say that we've been asked to summarize what the customers liked about their stay and what did they wish could be improved by just looking at the data itself. Can we say, what are the keywords that are coming out? If we can, how long did it take us to summarize it by just looking at these raw numbers? Raw text information, not numbers. Yeah. By using a very simple drag and drop tool called Orange, we're able to summarize and visualize the main keywords from this feedback, right? So for example, the positive feedback, we can say that, the positive feedback were mostly about the staff, how friendly the staff were, the rooms and the location, right? So if we did a similar analysis, right, on the negative feedback, we will be able to say things like the negative feedback were mostly related to breakfast and facilities, as well as, perhaps other aspects of the hotel itself, right? So you see the breakfast word is coming out, very strongly. We do take our food very seriously during hotel stay, don't we? Yeah. So this visualization is called the word cloud, right? Some of us may be quite familiar with this. This is a common visualization tool to summarize text data that has been pre-processed. With just one glance, we are able to gather the keywords that are coming out, which could be very difficult if you were to look at large amount of textual data. Yeah. Okay, so very quickly with, the two examples that I've shown you, the intent is really to share with you that data visualization is not only for quantitative data, we can also use data visualization for textual data or unstructured data, right? Okay, so let's move on to how do we visualize data. So just now I have shared very quickly what is data visualization and what do we use for. Now let's move on to how do we visualize data. Yeah, so we visualize data by using what we call as pre-attentive features. So what is a pre-attentive feature? So pre-attentive features are features that catches our attention immediately and our brain processes almost automatically, even without you thinking about it, right? So here's a very simple exercise. How many ants can you identify in 5 seconds? Okay, I'm just going to pause for about 5 seconds. How many ants can you identify? And I want you to be aware of how you are trying to identify the ants. Were you running your eyes line by line through the diagram that I've given you? Was it going from up to bottom, left to right, from the center, or was your gaze darted all across the diagram? Yeah, so pay attention to how you are trying to find the answer for n, right? Okay, so how many n's can you identify? Let me show you another diagram. Now, what if I show you this? How many n's can you identify straight away? And how long did that take you? Okay, hopefully that is less than 5 seconds, yeah? So then the question becomes, why is it that we're able to identify the ends much faster here compared to what we did just now, right? So the answer is because of pre-attentive feature, and this pre-attentive feature called color, yeah? So the ends are now marked as red, yeah, and your eyes are directed to where the ends are, which are marked as red. Hence, it was actually much easier for you to identify the ends, yeah? So a good data visualization enables us to gather insights. Suppose we are familiar with the context in actually about half a second. More often than not, when you see a visual, right, you are able to gather insights given that you're familiar with the context in usually about half a second, right? Let me show you another example. How about this? Do you think that you can identify the ends now in half a second if I were to show you this diagram compared to the first two? Okay, so of all the pre-attentive features, color and size are the two most effective features. By the way, were you able to identify all 6 ends, or could you only look at find 5? Do you notice that there is one end that I have intentionally not put a pre-attentive feature somewhere around here, right? You notice that ends without this pre-attentive feature, it sort of fades into the background, right? Whereas the ends which has been enhanced with pre-attentive features, it stands out, right? And it catches your attention quite immediately. Yeah. Okay. So we talk about visualization. What is visualization used for? To identify relationship, to summarize data. And I have very quickly shared with you two very powerful pre-attentive features called color and shape. Now what we want to do is to combine them, right? So let's see what happens now when we make proper use of pre-attentive features in data visualization. So here's another table of the happiness score in the different countries. I'm certain that many of us here would have seen at some point this report about how happy people are in the various countries, right? So if you look at this table that I've given to you now, I've got 2 columns of data. One of them is called country name and the other one is called happiness score. Okay, so the higher the score, the happier the people are in the country. Okay, pop quiz again. Based on this table, can you narrow down the regions or the countries where people are the happiest? Are you able to do this in 5 seconds? Okay, quick countdown. Okay, so some of you will be able to identify the country where people are the happiest or identify the countries in which people reported that they are not very happy. Yeah. Now, what if we change the table into a field map like this, right? Brown indicates a lower score. That means people are not so happy in that country. And blue indicating a higher score, which means to say that people are happier in that country. Are you able to narrow down the countries or the regions with people reporting higher happiness score in probably 5 seconds or even less than 5 seconds? Okay, I bet you can, right? So just by looking at this field map, we can say that the happiest people are coming from the countries such as the America, right, or the Canada, the Oceania, or even the Nordic countries. We did much better here than we did when we are just given a table, right? So that's the power of visualization. The moment somebody looks at it, even before you begin to explain, even before you're aware of what you are looking at, you already know the information that's coming to you. Yeah, so that's one of the power of visualization. Now, what if I change the visualization, the same set of data with a bit more information? What if I were to change the visualization to a plot like this? Okay, so if we just look at the x-axis here, which indicates the happiness score, we know that the most right dot represents the country with the highest happiness score, right? So if you have a dot that is further to the right on the x-axis, we know that this particular value records a higher happiness score, right? And if we look at the data itself, we find that, oh, the answer is actually Finland, right? So we don't have to look through the table, up and down through the table to find the answer. If we do plot a visual like this, we're able to find the answer. Finland in 2021 recorded, right, the highest happiness score. Okay, so with a visual like this, actually, we can ask a more complex question, right? For example, is there relationship between happiness, life expectancy, GDP in the various regions in the world, right? So think about what I'm asking in this question. I'm asking about happiness, life expectancy, GDP, and regions of the world. So can you imagine? I'm actually asking for an analysis, right, of 4 variables in a 2-dimensional chart. Yeah. So usually in a scatter plot, right, we can only investigate the relationship that is in the x-axis. In this case, it's the happiness score. In the y-axis, in this case, is a life expectancy, right? Because we know pre-attentive features, right? The pre-attentive feature that I shared with you just now, we can now use it to denote different dimensions of the data. For example, I can use color to represent the different regions. So for example, blue is the Central and Eastern Europe. I can use gray to represent the Western Europe. I can use a little bit brown, right, to represent the Sub-Saharan Africa, right? So I can use color, a pre-attentive feature, to represent another dimension of the data, in this case, region. I can also use size, right, which is also another pre-attentive feature that I've shared with you just now. In this case, I use size to represent the gross domestic product, the GDP. The bigger the dot, the higher the GDP. Okay, so now let's look at this visual here. What can we say, right? Can we answer the question and what can we say? Yeah. So one thing for sure, we can say more than Finland being the happiest country, right? We can say a lot of things actually. For example, we can say the region with the higher happiness score, higher life expectancy, higher GDP are from similar region. In this case, they're actually from Western Europe, right? Looking at the indicator here. Similarly, if we focus on this part of the visual, we can also say things like lower happiness score, lower life expectancy, lower GDP, right, are also from similar regions. In this case, they are from the Sub-Saharan African region. Yeah. So in comparison, let's look at where Singapore is. Are you able to identify where Singapore is? So in comparison, Singapore is doing pretty good, aren't we? Right? High happiness, high life expectancy, high GDP as compared to countries within its region. Yeah. Okay, so this is a very simple example to show you visualization itself is already very powerful. If we know how to use pre-attentive visuals, pre-attentive features in visualization appropriately, we'll bring even more power, right, to the visualization to gain insights into the data that we're investigating, right? So data visualization with appropriate use of visual perceptions, what can it do for us? Number one, it enables us to comprehend massive amount of data, right? In terms of the sheer size of it, as well as the multi-variables, the number of variables that we need to investigate. Yeah. What else can it do for us? It allows perception of an emergent properties that are not yet anticipated. So imagine if this data were to be given in a table, right? I'm pretty sure with just one glance, we will not be able to say, there is a relationship perhaps between happiness score, life expectancy, the region, as well as the GDP. But with a visual like this, which can actually be constructed very easily in less than 2-3 minutes, you'll be able to construct this visual. You are able to say that perhaps there could be a relationship between these variables that you're looking at, right? What else can good pre-attentive feature in visuals do for us? It often enables opportunities of the data itself to become immediately apparent, right? For example, if we look at, we find that there were some classes of data together, we can investigate it further. Or if we, if we find some anomalies or outliers, we can zoom in and we can analyze further, yeah? And finally, data visualization with good pre-attentive features will also facilitate further hypothesis formation for our statistical investigation. A good data visualization will answer your initial question, and it will also prompt you to ask more questions, right? So the process of asking question and answering question with visual, it actually goes on in a few iterations. It doesn't stop immediately. Okay, so in the past couple of minutes, I've actually done a few things with you. Number one, I shared with you data visualization. What do we use it for? To summarize data, to find the relationship, right? Number two, we looked at how do we visualize data very easily by using pre-attentive features, right? And I only shared two with you. There are 10 or more. I've only shared two with you. Using colors and using size, right? And if we combine them together, it makes the data visualization becomes a very powerful tool to gain insights into the data that you're investigating. Yeah. Okay, let me come to the third segment now, to the third part of my third part of my first segment, which is looking at the different types of data visualization. Yeah. And what are they used for? Yeah. What is the intent of using so many different types? And when to use which, okay? So these are the different types of visualizations. I'm pretty sure that we have seen one or more of these in either school, when we were in school, or in our course of work, or, when we're reading social media. I'm pretty sure we've come across at least one of this, yeah? So we have the usual suspect, the pie chart, the bar graph, and the pie chart, the bar chart, as well as the line graph, right? So these three visuals are most commonly used in communication of information. Yeah, and I'll show you some examples of that in a bit. We also have things like histogram, box plot, scatter plot, tree map. So these visuals are usually more often used for analysis of data, not so much in communication, but in analysis of data. Yeah, we also have maps and highlight table. So maps and highlight tables are probably visuals that are a bit more common in the more modern BI tools that you have. But I'm beginning to see map and tree map and highlight table to be a common feature even in pretty traditional visualization tools. Yeah. So at some point, you will have seen one or more of these visuals before. So these 9 visualizations that you see here is what I term as a starter pack. Okay, to anyone who is new to data visualization and you want to start learning about data visualization, I will encourage you to focus your attention on these 9. Yeah. So with these 9 visualizations, I am certain you are able to communicate your insights at least with your first cut, yeah, of analysis that you're doing on your data, right? Okay. So for example, excuse me. Okay, for example, if your intent is to communicate proportion, right? You want to show a part of a whole, right? Then what you may want to do is to use the pie chart, right? This is a common visual. So to those of us who are a bit, who have dabbled a little bit with the modern BI tool, you know that the alternative to pie chart is this thing called a tree map, right? So basically, if you want to communicate proportion, use a pie chart because it shows part of a whole, yeah? If you want to show the differences between categories, then use a bar graph, right? Because research shows that when we use a bar graph, our attention is instantly brought to the differences between the bars. Yeah. So if you want to communicate differences between categories, use a bar chart. If you want to show trend over time, line graph is the way to go. Yeah. Because when we see things that are continuous in our mind, we know that it is actually a continuous flow, right? It's actually connected. Yeah. So use a line graph. If you want to show the distribution of a data, use a histogram. If you want to show comparison between different categories, you will use a box plot. If you want to show the relationship perhaps or an association between two measures or two quantitative variables, you may want to think about using a scatter plot, right? This is a scatter plot. To show location data, you may want to use a map instead of a table, because a map will be able to show you, right, very explicitly what are the different points or locations that you're referring to. Yeah. And if you want your audience to read data of your visual, right, or read the data of a report that you're presenting, do not embed the numbers within the visual, right? Especially if your data file is really large and you want to communicate a lot of detailed information. Instead, put all these numbers in a table. Yeah, put all these numbers in a table. And again, with the modern BI tool, you realize that you're able to do this thing called a highlight table. Using, again, the pre-attentive feature of color, you're able to draw attention, right, to a table in which perhaps numbers where it is the highest, right, or numbers which is the lowest, or a particular number that you want to point attention to. Yeah. So different visualization actually serves different intent, right? So before you build a visual or before you use a visual, always ask the question, what is the message that you want to bring across? Do you want to talk about proportion? Do you want to talk about differences? Do you want to talk about location? Do you want to talk about association? What is it? Yeah. So with that, I think, and with this diagram that I'm giving you here, you'll be able to start your data journey. Yeah. Okay, here are some examples, right? Here are some examples from Singapore, how we use data to communicate insights, yeah? So the first example of how visualizations are used in Singapore for communication comes from data.gov.sg website. So if you just key in data.gov.sg, it will bring you to this landing page, right? In which you're able to see certain visuals here, and it will give you data or insights about Singapore at a glance. Okay, so for example, if you look at the bottom part here, this is a pie chart, right? So pie charts are used to look at proportions. Yeah, so for example, government expenditure in 2023, right? About half of the expenditure is actually being spent on social development, right? About a quarter of them on security, and about the same proportion on economic and as such, right? Okay, so if you move up to the top right-hand corner now, you see a bar graph being used, right, to show Singapore residents by gender. The lighter bar is number of females, and the darker bar is actually male. Yeah. So this bar chart shows the differences between male and female residents in Singapore, right? So with one glance, you can see that, you know, the females, okay, we have a bit more females residents in Singapore compared to male. Okay. So next, let's look at when we go to the bottom of this bar graph, we are able to see a line chart, right? And this line chart shows the trend of the flats that are being constructed in Singapore. Okay, so with this line graph, you're able to see things like, oh, the peaks where the flats are being constructed is around 1984, 83, right, and 1999. And you see that the lows are around in the early 90s as well as perhaps in the late 2000s. Okay, so this is an example how, you know, simple visuals is able to communicate insights about a set of data that you have. Let me give you yet another example. Okay, this is yet another interesting example on visualization by the Department of Statistics of Singapore. So this is an example of a field map, right, showing the different locations in Singapore. For example, you have Ang Mo Kio, okay, you have, you know, Bishan, right, Bedok, and stuff like that. So do you notice that at the bottom right-hand corner, you're able to see there's a little legend here? Yeah. So this is a pre-attentive feature. So what this dashboard uses is a pre-attentive feature called color to show the density of the resident population in the different parts of Singapore, right? Lighter blue indicates low and darker blue indicates high, right? So with that, if you were to take a quick look at the map of Singapore, you notice places like Jurong West, Woodlands, Bedok, right? They are in dark blue, indicating higher density in resident population, right? And if you look closer, maybe places like Bishan, Geylang, Jurong East, they're actually in lighter blue, indicating lower density in resident population, right? So if you go to SingStat website and if you search for this particular visual, you mouse over the map, you'll notice that something will pop up. Okay, and this pop-up is known as a tooltip. And within this tooltip, what SingStat has done is to embed a table inside. Yeah, so this table will show the numbers of the resident population in which you can easily read off. Okay, so these are two examples that I have from Singapore in which visualization is used to communicate data. Okay, so with that, I'd like to spend some time now in the second segment of my sharing. I'd like to share with you 3 of my participants who have pivoted into the data science field, starting with building visualizations. The program that they were enrolled in is called the SCTP Data Analytics Program. So SCTP stands for Skills Future Career Transition Program. Data Analytics Program, in short, we call it as DAP. So let me give you a background of what DAP does, the intent of DAP, how we've designed it, what did the participants go through, so that you'll be able to appreciate the final project that they completed in data visualization. Yeah. So the DAP was designed to help participants pivot into the data science field, right? And it is to fulfill the job role of data analysts. In this program, DAP, it comprises 9 short courses conducted over 18 full days, over a 3 months period via face-to-face workshop. So our training model is based on 3 mutually reinforcing training segments. When we designed the DAP, we really wanted to ensure that the participants have enough skills, right, to pivot to where they were from into the data science field. So we thought that these 3 training segments here were very important. Number 1, we wanted to build the participants in technical competencies, yeah, in analytics and visualization. Number 2, they need to know how to reason quantitatively and how to apply analytics methodology, right? And finally, after learning this theory and concept, they must be able to apply, right, what they have learned to tackle an industry problem. Yeah. So this is the 3 mutually reinforcing training segments that we have within the DAP, right? So the project is one way to integrate all this learning. There is a capstone project right at the end. The aim of the capstone project is not to offer a complete solution, right? Because we know that analytics solutions, sometimes it takes months or even years, right, to find and to implement. So the intent really for the capstone project really is to guide participants to use data, right, in offering the first cut insights into the potential solutions that they are trying to tackle, either in the workforce or in something that has been bothering them for quite a fair bit. Yeah. Okay, so participants engage in 2 sets, right, of materials. The first set is what we call as the basic stack, in which they learned how to reason quantitatively, what is data analytics, as well as visualization. So they will be taught how to do visualization. Then they go on to the intermediate stack of modules in which they deepen their learning. And finally, they will do a project to integrate all their learning. Right. So due to time constraint, I'm only going to highlight aspects of my students' project or my learners' project that are relevant to this webinar today. I'd like to put up front that, they actually did much more than what I'm sharing today, but I'm only able to share aspects that are relevant to data visualization with you. But I hope that's enough to encourage you to, come on board, yeah, to this wonderful area of data science, yeah, through data visualization. Okay. So the first project was done by Alison. Alison was in the e-commerce business. She has been doing inventory forecasting using her gut feel all this time, right? And then during the COVID period, she realized that she was not able to predict how much stock she needs, when to order the stock, right? And how fast her stock was moving, based on her gut feel alone, right? So what happened during the COVID period was that, using her gut feel, she realized that, there was an overstocking of some of the goods, yeah, which caused dead stock dead stock taking up a lot of very expensive spaces here in Singapore. Yeah. So additionally, she realized that some of the goods were always running out of stock, right? And she was not able to replenish fast enough, and that has affected her business reputation negatively. Right. And she also realizes that as her business grows, she was not able to transfer her business knowledge to her staff very easily. right? So what she wanted to do with the capstone project, which are the panels that you see on the right side here, she built dashboard, right, to answer some of the questions that she had, pertaining her work. So the first objective, she had wanted to achieve 3 objectives with the capstone project. So the first objective is to see how well her gut feel and the data that she has, how well does it match, right? So she built a dashboard to map out her fastest moving items and when restocking was required, right? So from the data, she noticed that she was able to predict, right, some of the goods pretty well, right? But she realized that, some of the items that she bought, she realized that she was not able to predict it as well, right? Which was actually quite an interesting insight for her. The second intent for building this dashboard is to use it, to train her staff who will then oversee the inventory process, right? And that frees up her time to look at other aspect of the business that she has. Yeah. And the third intent, what she really wanted to do with this dashboard is to build a model, right, that is able to forecast when the goods needs to be restocked. She wanted to create an alert system, right? To prompt her staff to say that, oh, look at this stock, I think it needs to be replenished soon. Yeah, so that she's able to always meet the market demand and yet she balances out the storage space that she needs. Okay, so this is the first project that I'd like to share with you by Alison. If you look at her dashboard, you may see that actually her visuals are actually quite simple, isn't it, right? It's not a very sophisticated visual, but I would say that this is a very good dashboard, right? Because it answers a business need, a business question that she has. Yeah. So what I would like to say at this juncture is that a good dashboard is one that answers your business needs. Yeah. Okay, let me share with you yet another example. The second project was undertaken by Soon Kian, yet another participant that I had the pleasure to mentor. Soon Kian was in the water management business. So he wanted to introduce a new sensor to replace an old sensor in a water cooling tower. Yeah, and if I recall correctly, this new sensor was also to be placed in a place in an environment that's different from the old sensor. I think the old sensor was an inside environment, and the new sensor was an outside environment. So what happened was when he tried to look at the data that's coming out from the different sensors, he realized that the old sensor and the new sensor was giving him different data. In addition to that, when the sensors collected data in the morning and at night, it was also giving different values, right, with one another. So what Soon Kian wanted to do, right, is to see whether he is able to explain, right, why is there a discrepancy between the data that's being collected, as well as why is there a fluctuation, between the old and the new sensor. So what he did was he went to data.gov.sg, he downloaded a bunch of data, historical daily UV rays data, air temperature data from the nearest climate station that is closest to his sensor setting, right? So when he did a very simple correlation analysis, as you can see on the right-hand side here, right, he noticed that his new sensor readings correlated negatively with all the other environmental and water data that he gathered, which he found to be very interesting, right? So what he did was he went on to try to build a model in which he tried to come up with, a factor or component that can close the gap between the readings that's coming out from the old sensor as well as the new sensor. Yeah, so this is yet another interesting example of how the participants who probably knew very little about data science and data visualization, and what they did was, with a business question that they had, they built visuals, right, that's able to answer the question that they had. Let me share with you one more. This is the third project, and it was undertaken by a participant called Dahlia. Dahlia wanted to build a dashboard for the HR hiring managers recruiting for the data analyst job role, right? So she realized that the current challenge that's being faced by many SMEs and startups is that they were not able to attract and retain talent in this area, right? So data analysts, they realized that the talents are being snapped up, right, by the bigger players in the industry, like the IT sectors or the finance sectors. Yeah. So what she wanted to do is to build a dashboard so that she can help hiring managers, right, to offer a better compensation package, right, to potential candidates. So what Dahlia did was she scraped the web, right, for a month's worth of job listing information data, and she built a pay structure dashboard. So for example, this pay structure dashboard that she has built actually showed that in the different industry, right, that the pay gap or the pay range is actually quite different. And what she did was she also showed what is the average pay, what is the median salary, and what is the average of the highest paying salary in the different job, in the different sectors, in the different job roles that's being advertised, right? So what she hoped this particular dashboard is able to do is to help hiring managers do three things. Okay, number one, with this dashboard, make a reasonable offer to the candidate, right? If the market is paying somewhere between 5 to 7K, if you offer, the candidate about 2 to 3K, perhaps that could be a reason why, the offer is not accepted. Yeah. Second, perhaps for the hiring managers to make a request, right, for a more reasonable budget if a certain job role is needed in the company, right? And third, if the company is not able to make an offer or a reasonable request, right? Perhaps the company can think about incentives or other compensation package that's able to close the gap, right? So what Delia wanted to do with this dashboard, this is not the end product, yeah? This is a prototype of what she wanted to do. So she just wanted to see whether the process works, scraping data from the web, right? And trying to visualize it. And she finds that, yeah, perhaps what could be more informative is if she had more data, right? So again, what I'm sharing with you here are actually 3 projects in which the participants use data visualization as a first cut analysis, right? To see how can data be used to enhance the work that they're already doing right now. Okay. So let me move on to, I'm coming to my concluding slides already. So this is my concluding thoughts, yeah, to those of you who are thinking about, using data visualization in your work. And, what does it mean when you pivot, yeah, into data science? Okay, number one, your work experience is very, very valuable, right? Especially those of us who have been in the workforce for a while, right? So when you step into the data science field, do not have the mindset that you're going to start from scratch, because you are not, right? When you step into the data science field, think about how you can use data to further enhance the work that you're already using now. Not using data to replace your experience, but how do you use data to enhance your work, yeah, your work experience that you can offer to the company, right? So perhaps one possible step, right, into data science could be using data visualization to make your work more effective, more efficient, more informed. Yeah. So there are many, many free tools available to you. You look at the visuals that I shared with you today, all of it are done, okay, are constructed using free tools, right? So you can actually start your data journey today. You don't have to wait, yeah, to get approval for license or things like that. You can start today, yeah. Okay, let me just move on to some resources that that might interest some of you. So the visualization tools that I've used today, as well as those used by my participants, are things like Tableau, Power BI, Orange, and R. Here are some books that you can borrow from NLB. I actually borrowed the books from NLB. The first book on data story by Nancy, it's very beautiful, beautifully written, very simple, okay, in its illustration, but impactful. Yeah. So data story by Nancy, and the big book of dashboard, which is also a very good reference because it tells you if you were to build this particular dashboard, what are some of the questions that you can answer, yeah, with this dashboard, and what are some of the adjacent industries that are also using similar dashboards. Okay, so these are the 2 books available from NLB. I checked it yesterday, so it's still available, right? So to those of you who want to dabble a little bit more into scripting languages, this is a free ebook on R for data science. I will encourage those of you who, especially those of you who are trying to move from Excel into a scripting language, perhaps R is a good place for you to start. Yeah. Okay, I'm coming to my final slide now. So to those of us here who are seeking a bit more of structured training, here at NUS Faculty of Science, okay, we do have a structured training program on data visualizations. I'd like to highlight one for you, and then one relevant course as well. Okay, so the first one is on professional certificate in data analytics and data visualization. So these professional certs, comprises 4 different courses, takes about 6 days. It has data analytics begins with me and continues with me. Data visualization begins with me and continues with me, right? So the intent is really to share with participants the end-to-end workflow and the best practices in analytics project, how to build basic and intermediate level dashboards, right? And how to use advanced building techniques to make impactful data storytelling. Yeah. So this is one course to those of us who are interested in more structured training, 6 days with us here in FOS. So here is another course that some of us, have been hearing a little bit about, ChatGPT. How does it help with, my work in analytics and things like that? We do have a course that has been newly launched. ChatGPT Begins With Me. To those of you who are interested to use ChatGPT as a user, right? And how does that, how to use ChatGPT effectively, efficiently for the work that you're doing. Yeah. So for more information, I pause here for a bit. There's a QR code here, or there's a link here, which my colleagues will be sharing with you. Do visit our website for more information. If you have any question, we'll be more than happy to get an email from you. This is our email address. Yeah. Okay. So I just pause here for a bit, and also the information will be shared in the chat. Okay, so thank you very much for your time. That's all I have to share with you today. That's my email address. I'll be very happy to receive an email from you. So next, I'd like to pass on to Mr. Chiang from NUS School of Continuing and Lifelong Education to say a few words about SCTP. Over to you, Pong.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Chia. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Pong, P-O-N-G. I'm from NUS School of Continuing and Lifelong Education. In short, we call SCALE. There are many programs, as what Dr. Chia has mentioned, that you really want to take on. There's a QR code just now that Dr. Chia has shared. All right, so Dr. Chia, I will request for remote control. Okay, thank you. Yeah. So because of many programs, one of the program that I would like to share is the SkillsFuture Career Transition Program that Dr. Chia has also shared just now. We will give you more perspective, okay, in the area where if you are an employer. So let's move on. To recap, SCTP is an initiative by SkillsFuture Singapore. Right, today we are also very honored to have some of the SkillsFuture Singapore representative here. It is for mid-careerist individual who would like to acquire industry relevant skills. So SCTP, in terms of what is the construct, is a train and place program where NUS will host you and train you and also place you, okay, into a suitable position with a rewarding career in the future. So NUS, in addition to provide employment facilitation, we will also complement it with career advisory as well as care counseling services as well to the trainee. So during these 3 to 4 months, we will take care of you, and we will ensure that you have a skill, you have the knowledge being transferred, as well as various aspects of having a positive mindset to go and venture into the next career of your life. So in short, this is the summary. It's not as presentable as Dr. Chia, but I guess that it actually shows that the type of courses that we want to put across. Today, I'm looking at 2. First is the data analytics program where Dr. Chia has mentioned. This SCTP, where it is really constructed in such a way that you will be competent as a data analyst when you enter into a market. All right, and then the other one, which is the up and coming one, is the sustainability and resilience program, where you will focus in terms of green skill. So we have 2 parts. The one that darker green lean towards more to the sustainability aspect, and the one on the lighter green will be on the resilience. So this is a new program, and it's going to start in November. So we would be having this in place and currently recruiting trainees into it. All right. So how does it work? Actually, it's a streamlined process of 4 steps where applicants will then apply. You will have to send in your CV, you will look into your certificate, and then from us we'll filter, because we only have limited position. So that's where we will have to talk to you. We have to share what your aspiration about, and then get you into the program. And so when you enroll, there's a portal that you need to enter. Then after that, right, you will also need to be enrolled into the Talent Connect, where we link you to the job portal that we have in NUS. So now on the other part is about employer partners, where employers are ready here with us in NUS, working with us to employ the trainees for SCDP. Today, we already have a group of employers providing projects and working with us, networking with the trainees to ensure that they get the right person into their job. And so this SCDP employer partners program are really available to any employers who like to come with us and have this journey through the SCDP. As an employer partner, you will access to Talent Connect, and you're able to sit into the class and speak to some of our trainees, especially, and also to participate in networking session. If you have projects, you can also offer to our projects on voluntary basis, and then offer it to the SCDP trainee to work something out, as what Dr. Chia has mentioned. There are no financial costs at all, but there will be publicity that together working with NUS, we show in the website, and also access to the SCDP graduate as it goes along. There's actually no obligation to hire, but what we can do is that we encourage you, because you'll be journeying through with them, to really look at all the CVs and all the trainees, talk to them, and you find that they're suitable one, you can actually recruit them, right? So it is really a 4-step process that we are looking at. You can email to us, put in your company, provide a logo, and then participate in all our employer partners activities. So I will put in the QR code here if you are interested to be employer partners, and then you can scan it here and then share with us.